Greetings. I am Brother Sylvester Muhammad, and this is my wife.
Sister Sandra Muhammad.
And we are amongst the many students in the classroom of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and his representation of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Today on the timeline of the original man, we're going to be dealing with half original man, Christopher Columbus. So today you're going to put on your thinking caps, because we're going to give some truths to the truths mixed with falsehood that the Caucasian has taught all of humanity about the man they say started the new world. Then we're going to bring this whole concept of a new world up to date. Okay, so I'm going to start it out by saying, according to the teachings of Elijah Muhammad, as given to him by Master Father Muhammad, Allah in person, 78 trillion years ago, Allah created himself from triple darkness. And the second thing that he created was the woman, after the womb, by which he bore all life from. All of everything that he brought into existence after that came through the womb. And he fashioned the woman after that womb, the dark womb of space, the second self of God, not of man, but of God. Then we got the sun, 72 trillion years ago. The stars, 66 trillion years ago. The moon, all right? Original man, know thyself, Shabazz, going down into the jungles of Africa. And mind you, it's important that you understand, the Caucasian, the man that's been ruling for the last 6,000 years, was not on our planet at that time or during those timelines. Then we got the 35,000 year of Buddhism, the 16,000 year of the Native American coming over the Bering Strait into what we now know as the Americas. All right, we got the 6,000 year when he came on our planet through a gravitation, an unlike separation of the weaker germ or the recessive germ from the original man by his father, God of that dispensation in time, a lesser God, Dr. Yakub. Then we got 4,000 years later, Moses coming to the Caucasian in the hills and cave sides of Europe. You can go back on the timeline, go to my YouTube channel, you can get all of this information. We've done 52, or we're on part 52 at this time, and you can get all of that up to this time. Then we got the 2,000 year timeline that we dealt with of Jesus. We also dealt with the 1,400 year of Prophet Muhammad. May the peace and blessings of Allah forever be upon him and what he brought as the last revelation to the Caucasian world. And then there's 1492. 1492. Well, what happened in 1492? It says that in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Let's deal with this Columbus, Christopher Columbus. All right? Now I want you to understand, somebody know what we're going to be talking about today. They know that it's been truths mixed with falsehood. Now, thank you, baby. That's why you need a woman or a wife, brother. She'll keep you straight. All right. History, truths mixed with falsehood. That's what you've been taught in all of the institutions of so-called higher learning in America and throughout the world. Because the Caucasian was given a timeline to rule. Okay? So he taught you what he wanted you to know. Our story is going to be the truth. All right? The whole truth and nothing but the truth. Now, let's get to Christopher Columbus. Now, who is this man, Christopher Columbus? Why is his name Christopher Columbus? Now we're going to read from Supreme Wisdom. We're going to read from the Supreme Wisdom teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad about this man Columbus. And listen to what he was taught by his teacher, coming in the person of Master Father Muhammad, the great Mahdi, the self-guided one, the Messiah that everyone has been awaiting. And he showed up in the person of a man, Master Father Muhammad.
That's right. That's right. So this is going to be on page 11, Lost Found Muslim lesson number 1, question and answer number 3. It states, why did we let half original man Columbus discover the poor part of the planet Earth?
Why did we The original man. Why did we let half original man Columbus discover the poor part of the planet Earth? Read on.
That's right. Because the original man is the God and owner of the earth and knows every square inch of it and has chosen for himself the best part.
Because the original man is God and owner of the earth and knows every square inch of it and has chose for himself the best part. He did not care about the poor part.
That's
Read
right.
on.
He did not care about the poor part. Columbus was a half original man and was born in Italy, which is Southeast Europe.
Columbus was a half original man born in Italy, which is Southeast Europe. Now, what do you mean by half original man? Well, the Caucasian has made you to think that Columbus was an original man. I mean, a Caucasian.
Yeah.
But according to God, who knows best, coming in the person of Master Father Muhammad, he told Honorable Elijah Muhammad and told him he was a half original man. In other words, Christopher Columbus's father was a Moor. His mother was a Caucasian. And the proof of that is that Islam ruled this whole area, the planet, after the spread of Islam through Prophet Muhammad. Then they were bottled up after the Crusades war for being such bloodthirsty people. We bottled him up into Europe. And for 700 to 800 years, we took Islam all the way over to Spain. All right? So he was bottled up for 1,000 years.
All right. It says, his full name was Christopher Columbus, and the place he discovered was North America.
And the place he discovered was North America. Well, he discovered that. Keep in mind, he knew something that the Spaniards didn't know. He knew something that the rulers of that time didn't know.
Right.
The church didn't know it. Isabella, who financed him. Ferdinand, who didn't want her to finance him.
Right.
Because they believed that he was a Moor. And they didn't like the fact, after being ruled by the Moors for 700 years, that a Moor would get the right to sail east, trying to find, sail west, trying to get to India. They didn't want her to finance him, but it tells you something about the woman's intuition. She looked at him and she saw this man know something. So she gave him some raggedy ships.
That's right.
The Nina, the Peter, and the Santa Maria. Read on, baby.
It says he found the Indians here who were exiled 16,000 years ago from India. They are original people.
He found the so-called Indians here that were exiled 6,000 years ago. 16,000 years ago from India. They are original people. All right. Now, the Caucasians believe that because the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, they feel, well, if you go so far on a boat, you're going to end up falling off the earth.
That's right.
So they always kept their eye on land. They didn't go too far in that. That's why I don't have in America's here. See, the map of America is not that, because they didn't know anything about it before we allowed half original man Columbus, prepared man for us to bring them or loose them from loose them from being bottled up in Europe for 1,000 years and get them ready for the last leg of their journey. Now we're going to message to the black man in America. See, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I'm telling you, we have an invincible truth. He was taught by God in person. This is why the minister is trying in the Final Call newspaper. It's entitled "Seek the Right Path." We'll get into it later, but the thing is that read.
Okay, so I'm going to be reading from Message to the Black Man. This is
What's the title?
Page 3, but the
chapter.
title is Allah is God, who is that mystery God, Part 1.
Allah is God, who is that mystery God, Part 1, page 3.
That's
at the
right.
very beginning of the book. Listen to this.
The messenger says, the shutting up and loosening of the devil mentioned in Revelation 20:7 could refer to the time between the AD 570 through 1555, which is nearly 1,000 years that they and Christians were bottled up in Europe by the spreading of Islam by Muhammad. May the peace of Allah be upon him and his successors.
See, thanks to Allah. You know, we brought them Islam to try to civilize them once again. After bringing them out of the cave, they went back to a savage state of murder and bloodshed.
Yep.
So we had to send them somebody else. Come on, baby.
That's right. Always sending them somebody.
Always sending them somebody.
Their being loosed to deceive the nations of the earth would refer to the time AD 1555 to 1955.
AD 1555
To
to
1955.
1955. Listen to that. AD 1555 to 1955. That's that 400 years that Abraham talked about. Know for sure to Abraham that thou seest be a stranger in the land that is not there. They shall serve them and they shall afflict them for 400 years. See, after that, God said, I'm coming.
That's right.
Now, in 1555, and then he mentioned to 1955, and I find that that's a very beautiful coincidence that we're not going to get into right now, but that was the spiritual birth of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan into the Nation of Islam. And Don Elijah Muhammad made the statement once that it would be 400 years since they took us. The first ship that showed up in the in Africa was called a ship called the Jesus. And he said it will be 400 years before that good ship will show up again.
Right.
In a relationship to a man living today amongst us, it's not a coincidence.
That's right.
Let's read, baby.
It says, when they, John Hawkins, deceived our fathers and brought them into slavery
Yes.
in America,
And
were loose free to travel over the earth and deceive the people. Now for their freedom, now their freedom is being interfered with by the order and power of the God of righteousness through the nation of righteousness.
Okay, now since we loosed them by allowing Christopher Columbus to know that the planet was not flat, but it was actually round, now we can bring down the map of America. Okay, we'll bring it down. Because Columbus did his job, and we're going to deal with not what Columbus's real purpose was, what was going on in his mind, what was going on in the mind of the Spaniards was two different things. Now we're going to deal with Columbus himself. Let's deal with the readings of some of his own writings.
Okay, that's
Yes.
okay.
How many of y'all remember this? This is a history book. You don't see them no more. Everybody's on the internet. But the Quran says to read. Don't get caught up in just what they say. Do some research on your own. Now these are the writings of Christopher Columbus.
You know, got a new page.
You put one of those binders in it.
I got it.
You got it? That's a big book.
It is. I don't know.
Hold on, let me see.
The thing is in right here.
You got two of them now. Ah, there it is. We found him in this big, thick history book.
Heavy book.
Heavy
Okay.
book.
All right, so these are the writings of Christopher Columbus during that voyage. Okay.
Big book.
It's a report by Columbus, his first voyage. I write you this letter whereby you will learn how in 33 days' time I reached the Indies. You want to say anything if I keep going?
Say it again. Read it again. Read it again.
He said, I write you this letter whereby you will learn how in 33 days' time I reached the Indies.
So he thought. Read on.
Okay.
He thought he was arriving at India.
Right.
The key was to go here, go around, and back to India. Well, I'm going to tell you why he wanted to go to India in a few minutes. Go on, baby.
I took possession of the island without resistance, for their highnesses by proclamation made and with royal standard unfurled. When I reached Wana, the fifth island, I thought it must be the mainland, the province of Cathay, but learned from some Indians that this land was an island. On Hispaniola, there are lofty mountains covered with trees of 1,000 kinds of such great height that they seem to reach the skies. Now this is Columbus speaking.
This is Columbus
of what
speaking.
he
These are
saw
his
with
writings.
own eyes.
This is a history book written by the Caucasian. Come on.
Some were in bloom, others bearing fruit. The nightingale was singing, and that in November, Hispaniola is a wonder. Okay, it's mountains and plains, and meadows and fields are so beautiful and rich for planting and sowing and rearing cattle of all kinds, and for building towns. The size of the rivers, most of them bearing gold.
Hold on, bearing what?
Bearing gold.
Oh man, it's finna get crazy now. Come on, baby. Bearing what?
Bearing gold.
Bearing gold.
Surpasses anything that would be believed by one who has not seen them. The inhabitants have neither iron nor steel nor arms.
Iron, nor steel, nor arm. They didn't even have a what they call a boat.
Right. A spear or any of those things.
Bow and arrows. They didn't even have bow and arrows.
Yeah.
Come on.
That's right. Nor are they competent to use them. Not that they are not well formed and of handsome stature.
Come on.
But because they are timid to a surprising degree.
See, timid to a surprising degree.
I mean, they were peaceful and humble people.
They were peaceful and humble people. But mind you, Columbus wanted to arrive at India. Columbus came looking for a fight. And he said if he arrived on these people, they were tempered and humble as a people. He was looking for a fight. I'll deal with that in a minute. Come on, baby. Right. Finish reading.
They say they never refuse anything that they possess when it is asked of them. On the contrary, they offer it themselves. And they are firmly convinced that I came from heaven.
The natives were firmly convinced that he came from heaven. Well, what would make them think that he came from heaven? That's the end of the read?
No, absolutely.
Read on.
Finally, and speaking only of what has taken place in this voyage, their highnesses may see that I shall give them all the gold they require. I think also I have found rhubarb and cinnamon, and I shall find 1,000 other valuable things. Much more I would have done if my vessel had been as good condition as by right.
Ought to have been. They gave him. That's it?
Yeah, no, it's a little more.
Read on.
Okay. Our Redeemer had granted this victory to our illustrious King and Queen.
Notice he said our Redeemer. He's talking about Jesus the Christ. He's a Christian. Even though his father was a Moor, he didn't believe what his father believed. Go on.
Which have conquered great fame by an event of such high importance. Done on board the caravel off the Canary Island on the 15th of February, 1493.
1493. Now, why did he mention, why did the people think that he was from heaven? See, first of all, the people of the Indies, the people of the Caribbean, the people of Mexico were expecting. They were expecting the coming of a God. They really were. They were expecting the coming of a God. Read this God's name first. I want them to understand why these people surrendered to him. Because they had an account that a God was to show up. What was called, he was supposed to have been on a wing. He was considered as a winged serpent. Okay? And the name was, read that little.
Mayan sacred, I don't know, that's a different one.
It's Mayan.
I know, I'm not sure which one.
Read that one right there. I think it's that one.
Mayan sacred animals, bee, deer, and jaguar. Representative of Kukulkan, the feathered serpent.
Kukulkan. It's hard to pronounce. But that was a serpent. It was called the winged serpent, meaning it flew. It had wings, and at the bottom of it, on the picture, if you look at my advertisement, it had some arrows coming out of it. Weaponry. Huh? Now, so they believe that was Christopher Columbus. They looked at Christopher Columbus and they saw a man, a Caucasian, not a Caucasian, a half original man Columbus, and they saw a statuesque human being. He was on horses. They had never seen a horse. There are no horses in the Caribbean, not even in Mexico. He had armor. He had muskets. He had cannons. Huh? And he was unlike, so they were attracted by him because they saw him as a god. As they said, as Columbus said, they looked at me as though I came from heaven. All right? Now,
Did you want to show them?
not yet.
Not yet.
But I do want to show this. And I mentioned earlier that Columbus' father was a Moor. Here's a book, you might have seen it during the advertisement, that says Columbus the Moor. Huh? Columbus the Moor. They never told you that. Even the picture they show you of Columbus, if you were to research that, they'll say that it's like researching a picture of Jesus. There are no pictures of Christopher Columbus. But there's a good movie out that I'd love to see. I've seen it a couple of times. It's entitled 1492, when Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Good movie. But Columbus was a descendant of Moors, and that's why in the Supreme Wisdom he's identified as being half original man Columbus, because it says, why did we commission him? But Columbus actually thought that he was who the minister is. I'm just going to say it outright. Look at his name, Christopher Columbus. The word Christopher means what?
What, the Christ?
The dog.
The second part, okay.
I mean, for Columbus means the dog. And the word Christopher means Christ.
Christ.
The first island that he landed on was called, he christened
it.
San Salvador, which means Christ's Savior. Columbus was on not a riches campaign or a riches crusade. Columbus he was out to revenge the Christian community against the Muslims, so he was on a crusade war. He was looking for a crusade war. Well, why India? Well, who was in India during that time? The Kublai Khans, the Genghis Khans, those people were there. And he knew that they had highly technical skills in shooting bow and arrows. But he had the latest in technology. If you want to research muskets and cannons, all this came up during the 13th century. So he was going back to revenge the Christians by taking out the Muslims and starting a whole new crusades, and hopefully he was going to win. But little did he know that once he got that gold back to Europe, it was over. Once he got some of the natives back to Europe, once he showed the potential of what he had found, read on, baby. We're going to read it from these articles we got through the research.
Okay. You want to do Christopher? Yeah, Christopher Columbus.
Yeah, Christopher Columbus.
Okay. It say, with the crew of 90 men and 3 ships, the Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria, he left from Palos de los Frontera, Spain. That's in October.
That's Spain right here.
1492.
1492.
It says, after significantly overselling the prospects of gold to the king and queen of Spain, Columbus returned to Hispaniola with 17 ships and 1,200 men. Yeah.
Read that again.
Okay. With the crew of 90 men and 3 ships, the Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria.
90 men.
90 then. That's right. He left from Palos de los Frontera, Spain. And that was in 1492.
In 1492. They didn't expect him to return. They thought he was going to fall off the planet. But he sailed from Spain into the Caribbean. And there, where he found the gold, the natives, etc. Now, when he got back to Spain, read what happened when he got back to Spain.
Okay.
And reported what he had found.
That's right. It says, after significantly overselling the prospect for gold to the king and queen of Spain, Columbus returned to Hispaniola with 17 ships and 1,200 men.
Now he had 3 ships and 90 men, but now it's gold. It's gold there. He said, well, if you gave me some bigger ships, some better ships, I might have could have brought more than what I did. They said, don't worry about it. You got what?
17 ships.
You got 17 ships and 1,200 men. And it's another writing on Columbus. He said, at that point, they overshadowed what he thought he was was supposed to do being the second coming of Christ. They overshadowed him because all they heard was gold. So the conquistadors, the Caucasians, not half original man Columbus, the Caucasians went on a gold quest.
That's right.
See? Went on a gold quest. And so he really died with a broken heart because he never found India. He never arrived at the place he was trying to find, and nor did any of the other ones until later on. But the thing was, he died brokenhearted. But he did what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said he was to do. Why did we let half original man Columbus discover the poor part? See, that's the poor part of the planet Earth.
That's
See?
right. Because they weren't here. They knew nothing about it.
That's right. They didn't know. Now,
Right.
we're going to read who came after him, because they got bloodthirsty and gold.
Crazy.
They went.
But even before that, when Columbus first came over, when he went back, he took a lot with him to show the king and queen. And he took women, he took gold,
Right.
he took all types of things, spices, sent all types of things back so the king and queen could see what was over on that part,
On that part.
of the earth. You
That's
know,
right, the
which
poor
was
part of the
poor
planet
part,
Earth,
yeah.
as it's called in the teachings.
Right, so that's what they did.
Now, we're going to talk about Cortez, because these conquistadors that came after him, they were the ones, the bloodthirsty ones. Again, he was on a religious campaign for war, another crusade. That ain't what they had in mind. They came out of there came out of Europe really with the first horsemen of the apocalypse. Okay, we'll get into that later on with the four horsemen of the apocalypse. But that was the first. With that, like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, they were loose
That's right.
and let free to reign the rest of the planet Earth for the remaining of their time, which was 460 years up to today. Now, we're going to read about Cortez.